A rich student thought he ruled the hallways, untouchable, admired, and feared. And the new black girl he targeted? She seemed quiet, alone, and easy to break. But what he didn't know was that she carried a truth powerful enough to shatter his entire world. A truth that would expose the ugliness behind his cruelty and flip the balance he thought he controlled. Because sometimes, the people we overlook the most are the ones holding the greatest strength. So when the real story finally comes out, whose world will come crashing down first? Amina arrived at Westbridge Academy every morning with the same quiet confidence she carried everywhere. She wasn't the loudest student, nor the most noticed, but she moved with a calm grace that made her stand out in her own way. Most days, she kept to herself, focused, disciplined, and determined to make the most of opportunities she knew many others never received. Her routine was simple: morning classes, lunch in her favorite courtyard corner, and afternoon spent in the library where the world felt soft and safe. But Westbridge wasn't just any school. It was a place built on prestige, wealth, and unspoken hierarchies. Students with last names that opened doors moved through hallways as they owned them, and everyone else learned to stay out of the way. Amina didn't mind, at least not at first. She had grown used to being the quiet one, the observer, the girl who didn't quite fit the mold the school displayed on its glossy brochures. Still, beneath her composure, she always felt the weight of being different. Her skin, her background, and the way she carried herself made some students look twice, even if they pretended not to. Things began to shift when one particular student started taking notice. Not in admiration, not in curiosity, but in something sharper, colder, a kind of attention that didn't feel accidental. It began subtly: glances, whispers, the sense of being watched by someone who believed he had the power to decide her PLA. Place here. A feeling she brushed off at first, unaware that this was only the beginning of something far darker. The shift began subtly. Small gestures that most people might have dismissed. A shove in the hallway that seemed accidental. A seat pulled away just as she was about to sit. Whispers that drifted behind her like falling dust, each one carrying a sting she pretended not to feel. The rich student, Thomas, carried himself with the entitled confidence of someone who believed the world existed to cushion his footsteps. And in his eyes, she didn't belong in that world. She was simply an easy target, quiet, hardworking, and visibly different from the crowd he ruled over. At first, she tried to ignore him. She buried herself in her books, in her routine, in those small corners of the school where she could still breathe without being watched. But Thomas wasn't satisfied with silence. His need for control grew with every passing week. Soon, he began treating her presence as an inconvenience, blocking her path, mocking her clothes, pointing at her hair as if it were a spectacle. It wasn't just teasing, it was targeted, persistent, and rooted in a bias far deeper than simple cruelty. The other students saw it happening, yet most stayed quiet. Some looked away, afraid of becoming the next target. Others smirked, enjoying the spectacle of someone weaker being pushed down. And she felt it, the weight of isolation pressing against her ribs. A sense of being outnumbered, outmatched, and unfairly judged for something she couldn't change. Things escalated one afternoon when she stayed behind after class to finish an assignment. As she walked through the nearly empty hallway, she heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, confident, unhurried. Thomas. He trailed her with the smug certainty of someone who never faced consequences. She tried to quicken her pace, but the echo of his shoes grew louder, closer, almost mocking her fear. He cornered her near the lockers, using his height and social power like weapons. He dumped the contents of her backpack, scattering her papers across the floor. A slow, satisfied grin touched his face as he stepped on her notes, smearing the pages with dirt from his shoes. She felt her chest tighten, not just from humiliation, but from the realization that he genuinely believed she didn't deserve dignity. When she finally gathered her things and rushed out, she didn't notice the teacher who had quietly witnessed everything from around the corner. Nor did she realize that Thomas had crossed a boundary far larger than he understood. His actions were no longer whispers. no longer disguised behind jokes or excuses. They were blatant, public, and impossible to ignore. The next day, the atmosphere shifted. A few students avoided looking at her. Others seemed almost nervous, as if they sensed something was coming, some consequence none of them could predict. And Thomas? He walked through the halls with the same swagger, unaware that a line had been crossed and that someone powerful was about to step in. Because while he targeted her, he had no idea who she really was, or who she went home to at the end of each day. The storm he created was coming, and he was completely unprepared for it. The moment everything snapped began quietly, almost too quietly. The hallway, usually loud with after-school chatter, fell into an eerie hush as Amina stood surrounded. Her books lay scattered across the floor, pages bent, papers drifting like fallen leaves. She didn't move, not because she was weak, but because she had learned long ago that sometimes the safest thing to do was to stay still. Yet today, even stillness couldn't protect her. Thomas's voice cut through the silence, sharp and mocking, echoing off the lockers like a challenge. He stepped closer, fueled by entitlement, followed by a group that seemed to enjoy the spectacle. He wasn't just testing her patience anymore. He was testing her dignity. His insults grew bolder, uglier, dripping with a venom that revealed what he truly thought of her. Each word hit like a slap, and though Amina tried to hold herself together, the weight of it pressed deeper than before. For the first time, her composure faltered. A single tear escaped, and Thomas smirked as if he'd won. Then came the moment that changed everything. He reached down, grabbed her notebook, and tore out a page, crumpling it in his fist before dropping at her feet. Something in the air shifted. A teacher rounded the corner, eyes widening, but Thomas acted faster, spinning a lie so effortlessly it was clear he'd done it before. He accused her, of starting the confrontation. His friends nodded along, backing him as if the truth were a toy they could bend. Amina's voice failed her. The humiliation echoed louder than the accusations. For a terrifying second, it looked like the adults believed him. Thomas stood confident, arms crossed, watching her crumble under the weight of a lie he crafted, secure in the belief that nothing and no one could hold him accountable. But at the far end of the hallway, footsteps approached with a calm, deliberate rhythm. Someone who had heard enough. Someone who had been called in urgently. Someone whose presence alone began to unravel Thomas's confidence. Amina lifted her eyes, just in time to see her father step into the light, and the entire hallway froze. When the truth settled over the room, it carried a weight the rich student couldn't escape. The principal's stiff posture loosened, embarrassment spreading across his face as he realized who he had allowed to be humiliated under his watch. Teachers who once ignored the girl's discomfort now stood frozen, suddenly unsure of every decision they had made. And the rich student, the one who strutted through hallways with the confidence of someone who believed nothing could touch him, found himself small for the first time. His certainty, his privilege, his arrogance, all of it cracked under the quiet authority of the man standing before him. But her father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm presence revealed more power than any threat could. He spoke softly, not about punishment, but about responsibility, how some wounds don't heal with apologies, and how silence from those who could speak up is often the deepest betrayal. His words weren't meant to shame, yet they left a mark deeper than anger ever could. As the girl stepped forward, her voice steady, she didn't ask for revenge. She asked for change, real change, a safer environment, accountability, fairness that didn't depend on last names, skin color, or bank accounts. And in that moment, the room shifted. It wasn't just about one bully or one victim. It was about a system that allowed it to happen in the first place. Policies were rewritten. Staff received training. The school that once let things slide became a place where silence was no longer an option. And the rich student, humbled beyond recognition, spent the rest of the year doing something he had never done before, listening. But the question that lingered wasn't just for him. It was for everyone watching. How many stories like hers go unheard simply because no one powerful is in the room to witness them? And what would happen if, just once, we decided to confront the injustice before it becomes another painful lesson?